This is a video, I suppose, that ends the, certainly does end it now. I mean, it really does. And if I thought about this a bit more carefully prior to doing my trilogy of CRT videos, I would have certainly have renumbered them slightly. This will undoubtedly be my last video. Whoa! Shock horror on CRT purchases. The reason for that is that I have finally got to the point where, in my opinion, I've reached the pinnacle of CRT scanline shiz and jizz. Recently purchasing a Sony BVM monitor. That's not a PVM, that was the previous video. This is a BVM. I think I alluded to in a previous video that the sort of various models, various series of the Sony CRT range, and I've done them all really as regards to that complete range if we include this video. You know, starting off with the Sony CRT consumer normal CRT TV, moving on to a PVM, which stands for professional video monitor, and finally ending up with a BVM, which stands for broadcast video monitor. Now, there are some quite big differences really between the three types of CRT that you can purchase. So, you know, let's start off with the CRT, the normal TV CRT consumer set that I'm sure we've all seen, and sort of in the real, you know, in the real flesh, and they're great sets. You know, I've got two of them already, but you may notice that certainly in the camera shot now, I haven't got a CRT TV behind me. I used to have a Sony set behind me, and I used to have one behind the camera. I haven't now. I've only got one CRT TV now in this room. I've unfortunately got them elsewhere in the house, but I've had a bit of a sort out since getting the BVM. I simply don't need anything else. This is, in my opinion, this is the ultimate monitor, the BVM. Hopefully from the introduction to the video, you've sort of got a bit of an insight to what the BVM looks like. Okay, a monitor is a monitor, yeah, and it looks very similar externally to a PVM. But the great thing about the BVM, and certainly the BVM that I've got, which is a fairly old one to be honest, is that it has a manual chassis on it. So it's got no service menu, nothing electronic. It's all manual. In a strange way, I prefer the manual setup than a electronic setup, and I'll probably discuss that later on in the video. But certainly at the last part, the introduction you saw to start this video, you saw this awesome tray that appears to pull out from the bottom of the monitor. That's what it actually does. And you've got the adjustments in there. So basically the chassis of the monitor has been mounted in this tray, and it means using a screwdriver or flipping a few switches, you can adjust absolutely everything on the monitor, and I mean everything. And this is one of the big differences between a PVM and a BVM as regards to the adjustability. It really is fantastic. It's a nerd's dream, it really is, to have all this adjustability. It far supersedes anything I've ever used before as regards to the adjustability of it. Most of the decent service menus on the PVM, for instance, on the 14-inch PVM that I showed on the previous video, it's got a massive array of adjustment, but this has got slightly more. One of the biggest pluses about the BVM is that you can actually adjust the convergence across the whole of the screen, which is hard on material to us people that are into the real sort of anal aspect of CRT ownership, and it means that you can get a pretty flawless picture that wouldn't otherwise be possible without a lot of test equipment and various other skills to adjust purity rings on the back of the CRT neck, which is not something you really want to do. The facility on this BVM makes it so much more easier, and it's absolutely great. I want to go into part of this video. I want to go into sort of technical aspects of what some of the stuff means. I also want to try and do some form of reference against this monitor and a Sony CRT monitor. I'm not sure I'm going to be able to do that, if I'm being absolutely honest. So you might have to just stick with a BVM showcase at the end. I suppose one of the things is that how does this monitor compare to a PVM? In my opinion, it is so much better. It's unbelievable. If we compare to the PVM video that I did, that was of a 14-inch PVM, and it was an 800 line PVM, so it was one of the later versions of the Sony CRT PVMs. Absolute great picture, but you have to take into consideration that's on a 14-inch screen. Now, generally speaking, the smaller the screen and the sharper the picture will look. And the bigger the screen, and the more chance you have of seeing any flaws within that video image. If I turn around to you guys and say that the BVM I got, which is 20-inch, you know, so it's a good 6+ inches bigger than the 14-inch PVM. The actual picture itself looks every bit as sharp. Now you probably think, well, that sounds a bit stupid for you to say that. Well, that sounds a bit weird that you're saying that, because that sounds like the BVM is no better than the PVM. No, what I'm saying is that the 20-inch picture, video image, is as good as a 14-inch PVM, and a bloody good PVM at that image. Like I said, normally you'll find that the bigger the tube, the more easier it is to see issues with the image. I would say it's as sharp. Take into account it's a 20-inch screen, but it's only got another 100 lines. So it's actually 900 lines on the BVM on the specific model that I've got. And it's actually probably worth stating now that the model I've got, the tube in it, is 25 years old. Yeah, you heard that right, 25 years old, and the picture is mint. It's as good, like I said, it's as good as the PVM, but it's a bigger screen. So that shows, or it should show to you guys, that there is quite a big jump in quality between a PVM and BVM, because I've got a comparative video image on the screen that is easily as good as a 14-inch PVM, and a good PVM at that. So even though the screen's bigger and the image is so pin sharp, it's brilliant. And once you tweak things like the convergence and the pin cushion and other geometry, it is absolutely cracking. And considering this tube, or the actual set itself, is 25 years old, and there's no issues with it at all. Absolutely no issues with it at all. The colour bars on it when I'm doing test grids are absolutely perfect. The geometry on a normal test grid is virtually flawless. There's a very, I mean, if I'm being really overcritical now, there's a minute, and we're talking sort of thousandth of a millimetre, but I can see it on the screen. There is a very, 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 very slight issue with convergence right at the top of the screen. But it is so slight, and it's a 20-inch screen as well. It's so slight, it's just, I dare say that normal people, I don't mean that to sound derogatory, but normal people wouldn't notice it. I've noticed it because I know what I'm looking for, but it's nothing. It is absolutely nothing for the size of the screen, and like I said, the image quality is stunning. It is really, really stunning. I'm so glad I've got this. So that's in words really a comparison between the two. If I put the Sony CRT TV next to this BVM, it makes the Sony CRT look utter shit. You would think the Sony CRT's got a problem with it, and it actually hasn't. But that's the jump up to a broadcast quality tube setup. You know, these are grade A tubes in here. Even the tubes that are in PVMs are classed as grade 2. This is a grade 1, a grade A tube. So the actual manufacturing process is a lot tighter. And the quality checks are a lot tighter. Basically, this is a quality of video reproduction that they would use in studios. They still use these now for an editor or a broadcaster to see exactly what the image should look like, what they expect it to look like before it goes out broadcast. so all the colours have to be right, geometry has to be more or less perfect, and you effectively get that with BVM. But like I said, the fact that this set's 25 years old, it is absolutely amazing. It's got the same inputs as a PVM does, so you can either attach to RGB and a sync signal, or you can just attach a component to it. Now, this BVM is absolutely staying now. I won't be changing it for anything else. I have no need to get anything else in here. It will do everything I need to do, and hopefully for filming it should be pretty mint. I think you saw on the previous PVM video the quality of the filming you're able to do with a appropriately set up camera, but also a really nice screen. You get so much detail, and you can pick all the scan lines and everything. So I'm hoping that the video part of this video, as regards to looking at the screen quality and so forth, will actually come through on the video as it did on the PVM. So that's probably it really. I mean, there's so much I could say about this, and I could keep talking about this all week, I'm sure, but I want to get to some sort of sample technical information for you guys. You can see what it looks like, get some test grids up, etc. See it in game a bit like I did with the PVM. I imagine there's going to be, well, I imagine there will be a few questions about the BVM. So if you've got any questions, guys, that you want to ask, you want to PM me, you want to send through comments on this video, then please make a comment on the video, and I will do my utmost to answer your questions. I really hope that this video has been of use, and I'll speak to you again soon, guys. Right, so here we have the Sony BVM with a test grid on there. Same grid as what I showed on my PVM video. Hopefully the clarity of this will come out well. Apologies for the fact that I haven't got the geometry set up specifically for this test grid, but it gives you an idea of the exactness really of the geometry. Certainly as regards to straight lines, it's more or less cock on. There's a bit of an issue, slight issue down this one side here. But I could straighten that up. That isn't a major problem. Something here to show you really is the squareness of all the pixels and the geometry around all the squares on the screen. You'll see that all the squares are evenly sized and spaced. So what I'm going to show you now is about the convergence. I'm sure some of you know more about convergence than others, but I just thought I'd give you a bit of a sort of technical example of what all that means and what the geometry stuff does. So first off, we will look at what pincushion is, and that's basically effectively the two. So where you can have side pincushion and you can have top and bottom pincushion, and on this actual monitor you can adjust everything. So if we just look at the side pincushion, and you'll see the image as I adjust it go in and out. So that's your side pincushion. So I'll adjust that back about there ish. And the top pincushion is the same, so you can go in, sorry, out and then in. So you should be able to see that hopefully. So we'll line that back up. And this is going to be very rough, this is, because I'm doing this bit on the cock. Now convergence. This is an interesting thing for this monitor where you can actually alter the convergence, and you've got vertical and horizontal convergence. So let's see the best one to show you guys, and you're going to see my hand going. If you look at the centre of the screen, you should see the convergence going. Now that is awful convergence. That's where you can see the guns aren't very aligned. The red, green and blue guns aren't very aligned, and obviously you can pull that in on this monitor to get more or less perfect alignment, which is what we got there. So again, that's bad. You know, I mean, this is the worst case of sort of convergence possible. But again, I can adjust that, pull that back in, and you'll notice it a lot on things like white characters with bad convergence, because you'll see a bit of a halo effect round the actual lettering, or you'll see a slight rainbow effect on the sides, and this is on a normal CRT. You can adjust this without getting really technical on something called purity rings or magnetic strips on the back of the tube, and it's absolute pain in the ass, but the BVMs have got absolute control over that. And the good thing about the BVM is that you can actually look at it across the whole of the screen. I'm just adjusting a centre part here just to show you what it looks like, but this is the convergence issue on the vertical plane. As you can see, that you're getting a slightly different adjustment there, convergence. I don't know if you can see that on the video. We'll just tweak that back in. I'll probably have to redo all this again because I'm going to be knocking it all out. So again, you see that there, you can see the different guns and the misalignment, and again I can pull that back in. And again, if I do that on the vertical, horizontal, oh, actually that's the wrong one, I was just in there, sorry. I'm really going to knack my tube up now, there you go. So that's really bad convergence. Pull it back in slightly and you get, there you go. That's pulled back in nicely. I'm going to have to reset that now because I've just changed the pot. But that's the sort of main adjustments really. You've got a V center and H center where you can move the image, the whole image, left to right and up and down. So there you can alter things for your underscan or overscan depending on what console you've got. So I just thought I'd show you that, guys, because it's pretty a nifty feature to see. So here we have the same game that I tested on the PVM. I've got to be honest, it's quite difficult to get as clear a picture on this video recording as it was on the PVM. I don't know if it's because of the size of the screen, the camera is further away from the screen because it's bigger. I've got to pull the camera back slightly, and it's struggling with the amount of light that the tube is actually emitting as part of the focusing and so forth, and saturation levels are not, it's not as good as what it was filming with the 14-inch, but it is literally the filming process, guys. You'll have to believe me, it's not anything to do with the monitor itself as regards to the picture that I can see in real life. So this is sort of best endeavours really to try and give you some form of representation of what this BVM actually looks like in real life. So hopefully, as with the PVM, you can see some kind of awesome clarity, which is what this BVM is giving. Now what I might actually do is cut to my Sony CRT if I can actually set it up in here, which might be a bit of a chore, but I'll see if I can do that actually, and I'll do some back-to-back then with a decent Sony CRT consumer screen. Right, so this is with my one of my Sony CRTs, Sony TV CRTs. The first thing you notice just looking at the picture, is the colours between this and the BVM. The BVM is a lot better. These colours are quite oversaturated. I suspect because they're not calibrated in any way, shape or form, apart from some form of calibration that's done outside of the well, as part of the production line process, which I imagine would be very minor in reality. The picture, certainly if you look at some of the letters on the screen, it's not as sharp. It really isn't as sharp as the BVM, like nowhere near as sharp as the BVM. Quickly have a blast at the game. Hopefully you should be able to see some difference there, certainly on the lettering. That's blurred compared to the BVM, without a shadow of a doubt. You're getting a lot of bleed on the colours, which you just don't get with the BVM. But as a retro image on these normal TVs, and they're pretty hard to beat, to be honest. And in some ways, it does sort of highlight: is it really worth getting a BVM? You know, if you can get one, or a PVM, if you can get one, if you've got access to one fairly cheap and it's got decent tube in it, then yeah, absolutely go for one. But you know, I mean, these Sony CRT TVs and the consumer stuff, they're just awesome. I mean, they really are great TVs. And playing this now and looking at it's, you know, even though I've got something that's of reference quality to compare against it, I don't feel cheated. I really don't, because it's a beautiful picture on this. And you guys know how much I rate Sony CRT TV, so it's a no great surprise that, you know. But it's you know, it is different, and the image is different, and it is better on the PVM. But is it really that much better? Yes, it is, but is it worth all the gas that goes with getting a PVM if you've got to look for one, and they are bigger units and they are like rocking horse shit? You got more adjustability without a doubt. But so that's hopefully a comparison has come out in the video between the two types of sets.